Welcome to the Manaverse Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Traplin, and this is the podcast where we explore what it takes to build a successful, friendly local game store. If you like what you hear on today's episode, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on whatever fine platform you're listening on. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button. As always, you can find the notes and links mentioned in today's episode at manaversesaga.com. We've got Christopher Wood and Deon on the podcast today. Chris is the owner of Modern Tabletop Gaming, a WPN Premium store in South Chesterfield, Virginia. MTTG is a fantastically executed game store with an epic sign out front. Definitely appreciate it. I remember looking at that specifically and thinking, like, that's a good sign. I like that logo. And today we're going to dig into what makes the store tick and how they earned that WPN Premium status. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm glad you could join me today. And I'm excited to dive into what makes modern tabletop gaming awesome.
Oh, yeah, we are too. Absolutely.
Cool. So, to begin with, the very first area of the store, let's go back in time. Let's talk about what the beginnings of the business were like. So what is the origin story of modern tabletop gaming?
Well, as you can see, the lovely sign behind us, we established in 2019. I'm actually retired military, and at the time I was working as an instructor, and we had a local game store that opened near us. What was the name of it then?
The Game Room is what he called it.
The Game Room. He had the game store for about a year, roughly, about 3 days shy of a year, and he had posted randomly out of nowhere, hey, we're going to go ahead and shut down. My wife said, hey, maybe we should buy that place. It's like 4 minutes from the house. And of course I said, are you crazy? I've been looking at that and dreaming of that for years, but it's going to consume my entire life. And needless to say, here I am now. Obviously, things worked out. But we came to an agreement. We changed the name. I remember, sitting around with about 24 index cards, which I wish I would have kept to kind of look back on all the different names we were looking at. And modern tabletop gaming kind of stuck out to us. Mostly, we can't really infringe on any things from Wizards of the Coast, but the MTG, we have the MTTG going. So I thought that was kind of unique. Then we came up with a color scheme and moved into the building, which was roughly about 1,200 square feet. At the time, honestly, what we took over from, there wasn't much. I mean, I think maybe 2 binders, no display cases. There were some things on the wall, some, your typical plastic chairs you get from, Lowe's or wherever, and it wasn't much. So, we got a loan, and we got a loan, and we went out, and we got to have product to make money, so and to get people in the seats. So we went out, and we started growing our inventory. Next thing you know, we're sitting on a pretty intensive Magic singles collection, and I'm there every day, 3 or 4 hours before opening. Every time the guys would come to work, they're like, why are you always here? Oh my gosh, there's something new. We just did something new yesterday. We put new shelves in yesterday. So it's a continuous growth as you go throughout the years of your business. You're always, looking to do something to, take it to the next step. And I think that's how we eventually got to WPN Premium in that aspect. So that's where it all began, in a small little store. Now we've ended up over here on the corner of a major intersection, 2,500 square feet, with the massive, amazing sign outside that we had put in. So that's where we all started.
Interesting. So you said you got a loan to begin with. How challenging was that? Was that something that you, like, was it a business loan? Was it a personal loan? Like, how did that whole process work?
It was personal. It was personal. I took some personal money and put it into it. I don't think the loan is too challenging. You got to do a business plan. You got to submit those types of things to the bank. But I mean, for me, it was a little easier because I just took out a personal loan, and I'm still, slowly working on paying that back. I have to say, it's definitely a grindy business for sure. You're not gonna make, you're not looking to do this for the money. That's for sure. Can there be money made? Absolutely. I typically keep to people that I trust and know work for me. I'm not big on having a huge staff of like 10, 15, 20 people. I just like having a few local guys and managing it like that. So small, very homey feel. We've always gotten that back from our customers as well. good interaction from us. Everybody knows each other when they come here. It's kind of like the old Cheers saying, where everybody knows your name, because that's for sure. When everybody comes in here, they know us by name and we know them by name. So
yeah, that seems to be a very common theme for the game stores that play at a really high level. They've gotten to that premium status, perhaps. That seems to be a very common thread. The idea of the Cheers kind of atmosphere, the place where people can come and feel like they're welcome, right? Feel like they've found their second home or their third place between work and home, that they can be themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about that? You think about, say anything on the...
So I absolutely believe the community is a very big part of our MTTG community. I definitely was one of the people here who really wanted to make a very comfortable place for all our Commander players, whether they're people who want to play at higher power or lower power. I can sit in all the pods because I have decks for all of them, and I really just try and make sure that everyone's having a comfortable time, and that, I even try and cultivate some pods where I see players come in and are like, hey, I know your decks aren't as powerful as some of the others. I prefer you sit over here. That way you actually get to play the game. And then other people, I'll be like, I know you're in for more powerful games with, less less mistakes, more clean gameplay. You probably want to sit over here and eat these people. And, it's just cultivating an experience to really help make sure that people are getting exactly what they're looking for.
I like that a lot. I like the idea of cultivating and curating the experience for people. And I think, again, that's something that I have mentioned on the podcast several times, where I have noticed, having done lots of interviews at this point with store owners, one of the personality traits that I see in the ones who are successful and have actually built up a powerful or a strong community of connected people is the trait to be a host, is to be bringing people into your space and making sure that they're having a good time and they're having a good experience. And it's not like you're just throwing them to the wolves, right? Be like, all right, come on in, join your first FNM. I don't really care if you've ever played before. Cool, have fun, right? Hopefully you don't get crushed by the sharks who are here. But actually taking the time to be like, okay, so where are you at, gameplay-wise? How do you feel about this? Or is this your first event? Are you experienced, or are you, maybe you're new to this? Okay, let's find somebody who might be a caretaker or somebody who can kind of show you the ropes a little bit so that you're not in the deep end right off the bat. And if you can do that, and if you make that part of part of the operation, part of the day-to-day, I think that really shows that people who come into the store will be taken care of. I really like that. I think that's a really good indicator that, maybe that's one of the reasons why you've kind of gotten to where you are over the past 4 years of, going from smaller store to moving into the larger location and ultimately achieving WPN status.
Yeah, and kind of elaborate on that, we're going to talk a little bit about success. And definitely what Deon's saying is the customers. What sets us apart from, people going out to Amazon and Walmart and Target and all these big box stores, they can get cards there, but they're not going to get that play experience. And we do, cultivate a very great experience when the guys walk in the door. We get some new customers, my guys know, hey, greet them, talk to them, what game do they play? If they play Commander, we walk them over, because as I traveled in the military, I went around to different shops a lot. And one thing I noticed when I went to places is I felt very uncomfortable when I'd walk in and there's a lot of people that I don't know, and you're just walking around and nobody greets you. I've actually left quite a few card shops where I walked around for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I didn't get greeted, didn't say anything to me, and I just left because I just felt uncomfortable. So it's different when you walk right in and you're like, oh my gosh, there's like 30 people in here. And then, hey, how are you doing today? What can I help you with? Oh, you play Magic? Oh, what format do you play? Oh, you play Commander? Well, we do Commander on this night, this night, this night, this night. Let me introduce you to some of our players. We walk them over and, hey, this is so-and-so. And we, shake hands and greet. And then what kind of decks do you play? And exactly what Deon was saying. And I think because Commander is probably the biggest, most popular casual format that Magic has, and you didn't say anything to them. They would just walk in and, they just walk around blindly and they wouldn't have any information and they wouldn't feel at home. So I think making them feel at home, wants them to return. And we've grown that Commander crowd. It's pretty packed in here usually, unless it's raining out. People don't typically want to travel out for some reason when it's raining, as yesterday was. It was pouring and our crowd was a little bit smaller yesterday. But, you succeed off the customers. And if you look at your business model from that perspective, then what can you do for them? We give away promos and random play mats and all those types of things, because it's like, hey, we appreciate you being here. So who's going to win something tonight? They know every night that they come to Commander, there is a random giveaway. So it's given back to them. So hopefully they keep coming back to us.
The consummate host. I feel like we're constantly going back to that theme again. Just like making sure people are having a good time, making sure that they are welcomed and they feel like they're not coming into an intimidating space. And it actually reminded me, in one of the interviews that I just recently recorded with another store owner, he used the metaphor of comparing the game store to a gym, like a weightlifting gym, right? Like if you're coming into the shop for the first time, you can feel like, even if you, like, especially if you're not used to maybe being in that sort of a space, it can feel very intimidating, right? Because you see all these people maybe playing games that you don't know, you don't know anybody, you're a stranger in a strange land, and it can feel like maybe this isn't the place for you, right? But having somebody kind of bring you in, and I think this is one of the reasons why the hobby industry proliferates through word of mouth, friends sharing their hobbies with friends. It's because that kind of short circuits that initial barrier of entry of, well, I've got a friend here who's going to help me integrate into this community, right? They're going to show me what's happening. They're going to help me not make the mistakes of, the rookie mistakes of joining the game and maybe bringing your intro deck to somebody to the commander table that's playing with power or something like that, right? Yeah. And then everyone's having a rough time when it comes to that kind of thing. But going out of your way to make sure that initial barrier is less intimidating, and kind of really welcoming them in and doing that, like the white glove service of, okay, let me show you what's happening, right? Like, let me tell you what the community is all about. Let me tell you what the shop is all about. Let me tell you about the games, and help you, successfully integrate into this community, and then maybe you will become a long-term customer, right? You'll be with us for the next several years potentially. So, first couple of years, a lot of things happen, right? We're 4 years in. In that first 12 months, 24 months, what were some of the lessons that you learned early on that you think maybe you wouldn't have thought of prior to opening the store? Was there something that you discovered that you were like, oh, I didn't realize that this was going to be this way? What were those initial opening years like?
For me, I think, so I was a Magic the Gathering player, and with Dungeons and Dragons, I'd never touched that before, so I didn't have any clue. But as that first year began, I started to see the amount of people that were really into the Dungeons and Dragons realm. And we had at the old store that the previous owner had a few dungeon masters and players, so we kind of continued and picked up with that. But then I realized in that first 2-3 months, we didn't even have enough space to fit the amount of people who wanted to play in that. And that's why I'm glad where we're at now. We have a very nice custom Dungeons and Dragons room behind us. Probably not to toot our own horn or anything, but like probably one of the nicest rooms that I've seen like around anywhere. Like, we got the fireplace, the lanterns, the whole tavern going, those types of things. But I think, like you were saying, the lesson learned there was that there's more games beyond Magic the Gathering. There's other things. There's Dungeons and Dragons. There's Flesh and Blood. Those types of games. A hard lesson was that with saying that is that there are numerous games that are coming out. I never even fathomed until I became a store owner, because I was just a Magic player. So now it's like, oh my God, there's almost 100, 200 board games a month coming out. And on top of that, there's dozens and dozens of trading card games coming out every year. So as I'm working with those distributors, they're trying to push these games on you. Which is their job, and we pick these games up, but then I find that being a very small business like that, these games aren't thriving. So I won't mention any of those games, but you pick this game up and then you spent X amount of dollars for product, and you do a learn to play, you do all those things to try to get people into it, and you start learning that the gaming community is very niche, it's very small. It's very hard to grow people that aren't really into gaming into the store. So if you got your Magic the Gathering crowd, which makes up 90% of your card players, and you got a new trading card game coming out, you're probably trying to pull from that same pool of people to play another card game. So I guess I would say to other store owners who are growing and doing those types of things, just be a little weary on what you're picking up. Do some research on it. Maybe put some feelers out there through your Discord and your customers, like, hey, are you guys interested in this game? But I also caution you with that because, we've had customers that have come in and say, hey, pick this up, we're going to play it. And we do a few months of gaming, and, we're getting like 5 or 6 people thinking we're going to grow it. And then all of a sudden that month comes where nobody's showing up. And you come in to work every day, you look at the shelf, and you're like sitting on, X amount of product. Now you got to go ship it off on eBay, and you're going to lose money on that. So the old adage of stick to what you know is very important to kind of stick to that for a while. And just maybe pick a few small things here and there to try. Also, don't try to do everything yourself, because with the D&D, I've only played it twice and I absolutely loved it. He's my D&D guy, so he can tell you everything about D&D. He plays every week in the store. He works at the store. And when people come in, if they have a Dungeons & Dragons question, he's here. He'll answer them for them. So with that, don't be afraid to have your loyal customers or employees that are there to explain things to them. We've had customers that have come in and we've been real busy, and they've been with us for 3 or 4 years, and somebody will come in and asking about Dungeons & Dragons, and they'll just get up like, oh, let me show you in the back our Dungeons & Dragons room, and then we got our calendar on the shelf over there, and they'll show them, so they're like an extension of the store. They're like a family, they're like, hey, let me show you what we do here. And then, they sit down after they leave, and I appreciate it. We were a little busy, but I'm glad you stepped in. I really appreciate that. So I think that, again, comes back to what we're talking about, taking care of the customers and creating that space. They want people to come here. They want people to come and play. So just be cautious, again, on what you pick up. But, again, don't be afraid to have people that are wanting to do those games be the ones that kind of learn it and kind of help you out with it a little bit. I think that's a very important lesson there when growing, or you're going to find yourself with a lot of backstock on a game that nobody's playing.
Right. Shoehorning yourself into one thing doesn't really help you when you're trying to grow and expand outward.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's right. It's an interesting balance between the core products that are going to be successful to some extent. Like, you got a good bet that Magic's going to do a good job for you, right? Like, people play Magic, love Magic, Magic's going to sell. But, I guess Flesh and Blood is a pretty good example of something that worked out, but might not have worked out just as easily, right? Like, it took off, and there was enough adoption that it made its way into the community, and it's another business line. But it very well could have fizzled out, like a number of other trading card games that have come and gone over the past couple of years. It's hard to really know when it's time to okay, there might be a community here, there might be enough here to make a go of this and make this something that we can carry on a consistent evergreen basis.
Right.
It's really that's a very fine line between figuring out when to expand and when to extend and take a risk on something that may or may not play out, and when to double down perhaps on something that is definitely going to continue selling for you. Definitely an interesting lesson to learn, and it's going to be different for every single. Your local community will very much impact whether or not something's going to work for you. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. Every game store should be doing carrying these kinds of game lines. Very, very particular depending on the group that you've got going on. So you mentioned that you put out some feelers. You checked in with your community. You have a Discord, and you ask some questions about what people would like. And then you also mentioned that sometimes people are like, oh, you should get game X. I love this. Is going to be a great game. You should definitely carry this line. It's going to be great. Me and my friends are going to buy tons and tons of product, if you get it on the shelves. And then it turns out that, they're not as interested in following up on that promise as they seemed. How do you know the difference?
Well, honestly, what I've learned, because I can't remember the games I picked up. We did 2 different games, and we picked them up, and it just died so quickly. So I did not jump on the Flesh and Blood bandwagon right away. My distributor was like, hey, you're missing out. He kept telling me, you're missing out, dude. This game's going to be great. And I'm like, I just can't do it. I'm growing right now. At the time, I was trying to move locations, save money, and I just didn't want to see that backstock. So if you're familiar with the game at all, the beginning, those first edition boxes, grew to a point where they were going for thousands of dollars. And then I started going, man, maybe there is a thing here. So I read some articles. I talked to some local people. Another store owner We talked a lot about it, and he was getting a very good crowd, and he's about 50 minutes from here north. And I was like, man, maybe we can try this thing out. So we started getting some decks in, and we started doing some learn to plays, and it's been rough waters trying to get people to play, because again, you're kind of pulling from the same crowd, kind of. And we got a lot of Magic players into it, but they just kind of fell right back into the Magic realm again. I don't think there's no perfect answer to that question of, how do you really figure out what's going to work? Because like I said, everybody's going to come in here all the time wanting to play the coolest game. Hey, get One Piece, it's going to be awesome. Hey, get Disney Lorcana, it's going to be awesome. But you don't know unless you try it. So I think going back to the previous conversation is kind of you pick the ones you want to choose and don't choose them all. And if you miss out, you can always still get on the boat eventually. So am I upset that I missed Flesh and Blood at the beginning? No. I could have had a backstock of inventory of boxes worth lots of money, but it wasn't really about that. It really, if you just treat it like the community, all right, is this going to be a good community to have, and it's going to work? And I started seeing that Flesh and Blood was picking up, and it is a great game. I think we're getting on an average night, 6 to 8 people, which isn't a ton of people, but it's enough for an event and for those people to know that when they come to the store, hey, there's going to be a Flesh and Blood event. And we were able in the past with that game to, we've hosted some ProQuest and some other big events here. We had 30 plus people in the store that came from all over in the area. So there's going to be duds and there's going to be good ones. Probably more duds than good ones because, Magic has been, I've been playing Magic since '96, and it's been the game of, the premier game that's been around. It's the game that most games are modeled off of. And I guess you can't look at the other games and say, oh, I hope this is the next Magic. You just got to say, hey, is this a good enough game for there to be a community? A good example of that is I knew nothing about Digimon, but believe it or not, we picked up Digimon maybe 3 months ago.
Yeah, we had a couple guys who really were interested in it, and they said that they'd tell their friends about it. And then once they told their friends about it, we got this huge expanding group. Digimon is starting to get more people than Flesh and Blood now, and it is very big events when they happen now.
Yeah, I mean, we had 17 last week on a Tuesday night.
Right.
Which is bigger than any other crowd we have on a weeknight, really, besides Commander. Commander's the biggest. But, I think you just got to be cautious. You don't overbuy. Try it out. Market. If you don't market it, then nobody's going to know about it either. So if the one guy comes in and tells you about it, and you're not in Discord, going, hey, there's this game coming out. Here's a link to their website, and here's an example. Do some promos with it. Hey, we got some decks here on sale. Or if you come to the Learn and Play, we had a lot of our customers that wanted to play it. They actually built a bunch of pre-cons, like 15 of them. So during our Learn to Play, the store didn't have to do anything, really. It was the player base wanted more players. So, hey, come Learn to Play. We'll teach you. And by the way, I got decks right here. So for me, the cost was nothing. Hey, show up and play. And then out of, 10 people that show up, hopefully 30, 40% stick around. You want them all to stick around, but if you get a few of them, it just keeps growing. So I think that's kind of the thing for new card games. It's challenging, but you just got to find what works for you. Again, stick to what you know. Try a few things, but don't try them all. Because if you try them all, you're going to be deep in product.
Yeah, you're going to end up fatally overstocked eventually.
Absolutely,
yeah. I think my thought on that is basically don't let FOMO dictate your buying decisions. I think that's as a baseline. That's just one thing to don't worry about too much about missing the boat or missing out on the next wave, the next trend or something like that. Because if you're constantly chasing that, you're going to lose more than you're going to win.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
And you mentioned marketing, my favorite topic. That's one thing that
mine too.
We always touch on all the time. So what do you do for marketing? Well, how do you go out and find new people? What kinds of things do you put out there into the world? Do you use do you do advertising? Do you do radio ads? What kind of stuff are you making use of at the moment?
So we do quite a bit. We actually had a voice actor come in a few months ago, and we did a commercial. It was actually pretty cool. He's a voice actor. He's got some Netflix stuff too, so I thought it was really cool that he came in and was doing that for us. But to backpedal a little bit, you got to start with a very small base. Your Facebook, your Discord. Discord is I didn't know anything about Discord actually, so going back kind of the growing story, my kids, knew what Discord was, and I didn't set up Discord at all. They completely did it for me. I know how to use it now, but Discord is such a simple way to advertise. You can create your events in there. You can create so many categories. Hey, here's new products. Here's new games coming out. Here's the D&D section. Here's the Magic section. Here's a Flesh and Blood section. Here's all these different categories. So that's simple marketing right there. If you're not doing that from the very least, then your big marketing, I don't think is going to pay off as much as your small marketing is. Flyers, calendars, the commercial we did.
Word of mouth is definitely a big one.
Word of mouth is probably the number one. I mean, I know that's kind of hard. I guess that is marketing, but because, again, go back to the customer thing we talked about, these guys leave here and we have shirts we sell. They wear their shirts to the store. We got pens. They wear their pen. You just never know who's going to pick up that pen and go, there's a gaming store in Chester. Because, we're in a smaller community south of Richmond. You don't know how many times a week since we've been open, somebody walks in and says, I didn't know you guys existed. I live 5 blocks from here. Or I didn't know you were here until I saw a guy that works at Target told me about you down the road. And we get that all the time. Like, people they love it, so they want to tell people about it. So that's one of the best marketings, like you said, word of mouth. There's something else.
Do anything to encourage word of mouth in particular? Like, other than like the merch and the shirts and putting your logo on, stuff like that kind of naturally spreads that?
We haven't really delved into something like that. I think, honestly, we just treat everybody so well and make it so homey for them when they come here and want to play that they just want to tell people about the store.
I think my favorite piece of marketing that we do have is our business cards are actually shaped like Magic the Gathering lands. It's legendary land, modern tabletop gaming. It has all our information on it. And we just hand them out and we tell people, take as many as you need. I actually have a few in my wallet. And when I go places where I feel like, people could join the community and really help us grow, I hand out a couple.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Our cards, we love our business cards.
Slide them into their trading card binders when you're working with them.
Exactly.
Just keep these with you.
Sometimes I'll leave them on shelves at random stores. Sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. There's something else marketing I was trying to think of. We do. Flyers. So, creating that flyer for the events you got coming up, putting those out there, linking a calendar to your website. We have a website as well. I think as a store, if you want to grow, having a website's important. We have a newsletter. We've looked at some other marketing things that didn't work out, through some point of sale systems, and we're kind of relooking at that again. But you also get, the posters like you see behind us. You got all the marketing back here for all the different Magic sets that come out. Decorating your store, that's marketing. People come in and they see the newest Magic set coming out. We just got our premium posters in yesterday, actually, for our first. It's our first premium stuff we're getting of, for the new set for Exia All Be One. So having that in the store, people go, wow, that's a great poster. Or hopefully they see it and go, oh man, when's that coming out? So it gets them thinking like, oh, pre-release is coming up next weekend. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, did you think about joining our event? It's Friday night. Oh, and by the way, on Friday night we do free pizza. That's another marketing thing we do is the free pizza on Friday night. It packs the house in here on Friday night. 40, 50 people. They're all about getting that 2 slices of pizza. So.
Another piece of marketing. Oh, I apologize. Another piece of marketing that I also enjoy that we really have is on our TVs that we have displayed on the wall. They'll actually rotate out through our weekly events and what's coming up. I've actually had a couple Commander players who come in, brand new people. It's just like, yeah, you guys here to play Commander? They're like, yeah, we stopped in the store a couple days ago, but we happened to see on the TV because you guys were really busy. We didn't want to interrupt. But we saw on the TV your Commander Day, so we decided to come on those. And I was like, oh yeah, sorry we missed you. But here's some pods. What are you looking for? In your gameplay, and we'll move them over there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's like a 24/7 salesperson for you, kind of sharing the info and letting people know what's going on at the store without having to physically take up your time.
Right.
Do you have somebody on your team, or do you do the graphics and the design and all that stuff yourself? Like, how do you make all these images for the TV and the marketing and all that?
I do them myself. I use a website called Canva. Any store owner out there, if you've never used that, I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't have Canva, or if you're paying somebody, one thing I'm big on time, and I like paying people to do stuff for me that I can, but I do my marketing myself, and because Canva is so simplistic. If you've already downloaded all your images and things you need to do, you can probably build a nice, beautiful, amazing flyer in a matter of 10 minutes. You get up, you get your coffee for the morning, and you just make your flyer for that pre-release coming out next month or 2 months from now. I pay for that subscription, and that's probably been one of my favorite programs I've ever used when it comes to things in the store for marketing.
Yeah, I love Canva. I recommend it a lot. I use it every day. It's
really good.
You don't have Photoshop, you don't need Photoshop. You can
You
do
don't.
a lot with a very simple browser-based, graphic app. Right? It's fantastic. We talked about lessons learned, maybe some hard lessons in the beginning. What are some of the things that you've learned over the past 4 years now that you like? You hit the nail on the head. This was a big win. What's something that you feel like other store owners should be like? This is exactly what you need to be paying attention to. This kind of a thing was a major success.
This is gonna sound kind of weird, maybe, but having a really clean store. You've got to start with the customers, and after that, make sure your store is clean. You walk in. The worst thing you can do is walk into stuff all over the place, trash and chips and from weeks ago, and having a clean store is important. You'd be surprised how many people. We had a customer come in the other day, and they were like, "Man, this smells good in here," and I'm like, "Well, that's good to know." Right, we got these little air fresheners everywhere, so that might sound really small to some people out there right now, but I'm telling you, if you could be 100% successful just off a clean store and treat people right, and you would just.
Way to compact that.
I know that sounds so simple, but I've been doing this 4 years, which isn't a long time, but we've gotten to where we're at based off simply taking care of those guys and creating a clean place. And of course, on top of that, you got to have product. We talked about that a while back, but yeah, you got to have product, and the right product. Deck boxes, play mats, magic product, sealed product, singles, those types of things.
That is one of the things I think we hit on the nail on the head is the fact that we always have things so well organized in our spaces. We've got all the magic stuff in one spot. Right next to that is where the D&D stuff kicks in, and then once the wall starts, it's dice, then it's books, then it's figurines, and then we move on to the next thing, like Pokemon, and then we move on to the next thing, which is board games. And they're all kept in such compact areas. You always know where you want to go to look for those things. If I'm looking for a dice, I'm going to go look where the D&D section is. And then while I'm over there, maybe I need another book or some more spell cards, or hey, there's figurines and models right there. It's just a nice, easy follow-up.
That's true. I never thought about that. Right. We do keep that. You walk in Magic, into Pokemon, into everything. So having stuff organized worked really well as well.
Right.
All right, so we're back. We had some technical difficulties. Unfortunately, my power went out for several hours, actually, back when we were originally recording the first half of this conversation. But we're back, and we're going to pick up where we left off. So we were talking about the successes that you've had with the store and the things that you believed game store owners should be paying attention to right now. So what's worked for modern tabletop gaming that you think other game store owners should probably be paying attention to?
Another thing I was actually kind of thinking about since the power outage was, we talked about marketing a little bit, so it kind of goes along with that, but also, pre-orders for items. So one thing I've learned about gamers, and I hate to be stereotypical, but I think Deon can also attest to this, is they're kind of very unaware sometimes of what's coming out. We can have posters in the store right in your face when you walk in. We put signs right at the register months in advance. Hey, this set's coming out. Hey, we got pre-orders. And we will have people walk up 2 months later. Hey, when are you taking pre-orders for this? It's like, this has been here for 2 months. So one thing we do that makes us successful with that is when we get the product in, for one, like this week we got the new set coming out, we actually put it all out on the shelf, obviously with a sign that says, hey, not available till February 3rd, but this week alone doing that, we've actually taken in probably a dozen pre-orders just off of that, because most of them walked to the counter and went, oh, we can buy that now? And I said, no, but you can go ahead and pre-order it for Friday, and they did a pre-order. So that works, advertising, and constantly, putting it out there. Also, don't be afraid when you're running events to make those announcements as well. I always make notes before big events. He always sees me making little notes, and then I'll say, hey, before we get started, a couple things, next week we got this going on, we got this going on. And I just think that gets people, kind of re-triggers their memory. Because at the end of the day, people have lives, and hopefully that's the most important thing first, and then gaming. But they tend to forget about the new sets, the events that are going on, and on top of that, you have other competing stores around. While we all do work together, it's you want to put it out there and remind them that, hey, our event is this Friday. Like, for one thing, we do that's unique to us, and I've always been told that when you have other people that you're kind of competing with, or what do you do different? So one thing we do different on Fridays is like free pizza.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we got free pizza on Friday at pre-release, so that's been a big success for us.
I think that's a great point. I think it's something that a lot of people forget about, and I think this happens in all spheres of life. When you're in something and it's your day-to-day, it's everything that you do. You think about it all the time. Like, you're in the store, everything that's happening in the store, all the product, all the stuff, everything that's happening, you're immersed in it, and you think, or you can easily make the mistake that since this is everything that I think about and I know everything about what's going on, that other people probably know as well. And we make this cognitive error all the time. We assume that the things that we know, other people just they must know this too, right? And it's a very easy error to make, to think that oh, I've got all this events, I've got the calendar up there. Everybody who comes in the door should know exactly what's happening in the store at all times. And they should know what every event is, and they should know all the times and all the costs and everything that's happening. But you actually have to go out there and remind them. You have to tell them, okay, this is the thing that's happening. And then also, like you said, you have to point it out, because sometimes the person, they might, oh yeah, the pre-release is coming up, that's really cool. And then a couple of weeks go by, and life gets in the way and things happen. You have to gently remind them that, hey, did you know the pre-release is coming? Are you going to join us? And they're like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about that because whatever. I really wanted to do that. Thank you for reminding me. And there's this one of the things that I've noticed from a lot of game stores is this reluctance to intrude on someone's life. Like, they feel like if you're going to be marketing or you're going to go out there and tell somebody about what you're doing, that's pushy, right? Like, that's I'm getting in their way, and I just want to do my games and have people come to me. Like, no, you have to be active, and you got to get out there. You got to tell these people that this is what's happening. You have to gently remind them constantly, because life is always going to get in the way.
Another thing too I just thought about was don't be afraid to make it about having fun. Sometimes a lot of stores get caught up in the big events, which I did for a while because I got the new big glamorous store with all these seats now, and I'm like, oh, we're running RCQs. I'm super excited. We got people coming in the store. But we do other things too. For Halloween, we had a Halloween costume party. So let these guys come out, and even though some of them dressed up outside of Halloween, that's fine. They come in their characters, but we do a party. We put out cookies and snacks and drinks for free, and just come dressed and we had a costume contest, and
right.
The winner got a whole booster box for the best costume. So it's just, again, small things that may seem like some people might look at it and go, oh, I'm not giving away a booster box for free, but it's a small price to pay to get people to come and have fun and want to come back.
Right. I definitely think an important thing about that we've hit very well, nail on the head, is giving back to your community. It's very important to make sure that when it comes to having that experience, to make sure that people feel welcome and that people also are incentivized to come back, even if that's just nice people and the store smelling good, like we talked about, small giveaways like we do sometimes with our events, like during Commander Nights, and even then just doing small things like having pizza during pre-release or doing Halloween parties. Definitely making the community more than just about Magic the Gathering, and also just about having a good store in general. It's keeping that community outreach, which is something that we've really worked on.
Yeah, you can invest as long as it's, operationally everything's still running smoothly. You can still pay yourself, you can still pay your employees. Don't give away everything for free just in order to get people in the door. But do the math and figure out what can you invest into somebody in order for them to feel welcome, right? To want to come back on a consistent, hopefully weekly basis or or even more than that, right?
Yeah.
What does it take to get somebody to be a really regular, active, and valuable to the business lifetime customer? If you can do something to create an environment that incentivizes that, it is worth it in the long run, right? It comes back to the shop. It comes back to like it makes everything better, right? It makes the experience better because there's a point where I think of certain brands like Apple and stuff like that, that the customers want to spend their money with those companies, right? They go out of their way to be customers. They like to spend money on the new devices and the new computers and phones and whatever else because they start to identify with the brand. And I think game stores have the power to do that as well. You can create customers that want, they don't just play at your store. They almost identify with your store.
Yeah, and that's funny you say that, identify with your store. I'm not sure if we previously covered, I can't remember, but like we created modern tabletop jerseys that we did. So when the RCQs kicked off again, we kind of offered this little incentive we did was, hey, if you wear our jersey to other stores or other big events, and you top 8, we covered your entry fee for that RCQ. We've recently stopped doing that because it was getting, a lot of our players were just top 8 like crazy. So I was, like you said, I was kind of like, breaking the bank a little bit there. But, we've also gotten to a point now where our players are wearing it out of pride. So funny story, I got a text. So one of my main distributors I was using, the main guy I was talking to for working with for 3 years, left that company. And I got a text from him randomly, a picture, and he was at, I think recently was Star City, Philly, was like a month ago or so. And 2 of my players were there walking around playing in the event and stuff and had jerseys on. He yelled at them, hey, come over here. I know like your owner. Let's get a selfie together. And so I didn't even know they had wore the jerseys there. And here I'm getting this selfie, getting that little bit of small recognition of, being out there. So I thought that was kind of cool. They kind of pride themselves on, being part of a community, part of the team,
Yeah, I think that is very the healthy side of the competitive side of Magic.
Yeah.
Is having people who want to represent your brand, represent you, represent what the community is, right? If you've created a good culture and you've created a good place where people want to play and it's not competitive in the negative sense where people feel
right.
unwelcome or intimidated or scared to participate, but they feel like we're all kind of rising together. As players, you play together, you play well, you learn, you improve, and I think that was a big atmosphere or a big element of the atmosphere of a lot of the early days shops. Like there's a few like Neutral Ground and stuff like that kind of became known as this breeding ground for really high level players, right? Like a lot of people in the Pro Tour came from a few select areas and a few select communities, and it's because they had that culture of cooperation, and like they played together and they played to win, but they played to also build each other up. And if you have that and you have that represented with your store, then they go out and they start spreading that message for you, which is all part of the awesomeness of having people who are brand ambassadors and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, another thing, again, memory kind of doesn't serve me very well, but so I hope I'm not repeating myself, but in your local communities, I would say to other owners, don't be afraid to build a relationship with each other. That's one thing about Richmond I've absolutely loved, and it's probably one of my favorite things about this area is we all just communicate, and there's no, stabbing each other in the back. And again, if I've already covered that, I'm sorry, but like I just think that's really important because it just makes no sense to me to, trample on each other, and just build that rapport with each other is really important as well. So don't be afraid to go out there and go to another store and say, hey, I'm the owner of, Modern Tabletop Gaming, and this is what we do, and how can we work together to build this, community of Flesh and Blood or Magic or whatever, game is coming out. So, or I've even said, like, I'm not going to actually do this because you guys have such a large community. I'm just not going to touch it, So we just kind of do those kind of things, and we do dinner once a quarter together. So it's kind of, I really like that. So
yeah, no, that's a point that I'm happy to hammer home more than once, because that's something that we've revisited multiple times, and I think that is again another error that a lot of game store owners make when they're first getting into business, is they think that they have to like undercut or compete or be aggressive with other stores in the area, like depending on how close some of them are perhaps, or how much your business models overlap. I feel like there is much more opportunity in being cooperative and like being friendly and creating this bond. You can work together in ways where you can amplify what you're both doing. Like multiple store owners can work together. You don't have to step on each other's toes. You don't have to try and steal customers away from each other.
Right.
You can, who knows? Individuals are, everyone's different. Who knows what the other store owners might be like? If that's what they want to do, then well, you got to do your best, right? But if you can cooperate with them, it's definitely a far superior strategy because, who wants to be working in an environment where you feel like your fellow store owners who are going through similar experiences to you, like being a business owner is pretty lonely. If you don't have anyone to talk to about the same kinds of things that you're going through, but if you can connect with them, that's a very big asset, and it's a really good long-term just mental health thing. Just being able to talk to somebody who's going through the exact same things as you, same problems, same issues, same industry. That's very hard to find in a lot of ways. So if you've got that going on, I really like the idea of just once every 3 months, just getting together and having a dinner and just talking shop.
Maybe think about another thing too is your employees, who you hire, who you can trust. And I hate using the word employees because I don't think anybody we have is really an employee. Funny joke, Deon's always called me his dad every time I come in the store. He's like, "Hey, Dad," and he's been with me since the beginning, since we've opened, and a couple other guys have as well. But I think the same way you treat your customers, you got to treat your employees even better. Take care of them. Make sure everybody's also aware of what's going on in the store. So if I get here early, like I'm always here early, which he's always yelling at me about. What have I done this morning that I need to communicate with my team? Hey, there's a new product. Don't forget. Hey, don't forget to every customer that comes to the counter, remind them that, hey, if they do this, we have this sale going on, during a pre-release or a draft. Hey, do you need draft sleeves, So everybody's got to be on the same page. That's the worst thing where you can do is somebody talks to one employee and then talks to another and they're just not in sync. So I think, and that's kind of, maybe shouldn't need to be said, but, it's something to think about.
I think the things that you probably don't think need to be said are the ones that probably need to be said. Those are the big blind spots a lot of times, is the stuff that you feel like is just, everyone knows this. This is the assumption. This is the baseline, right? Those are the things that most people forget about or, maybe just don't realize in the first place because nobody talks about it. And right now we're at the beginning, almost the beginning of 2023. We've got another 11 months, the rest of the year. We're still fresh into Q1 right now, but 2023 is I think going to be a very interesting year. We've seen a lot of changes and a fair number of upheavals in the hobby industry in the last month to 2 months. What do you think is going to happen over the next 11 months? What do you think is going to happen over the rest of the year? Do you have any predictions? How do you feel about 2023 in the future?
I think the games in the store, and the hobby industry is going to continue to grow. We're still fairly new to coming out of COVID, and I think people are definitely back out in full force now at this point. But I think hobbies are going to continue to be a key point of contention with the industry because people want to get out, they want to relax, and they want to enjoy their favorite board game, card game, Dungeons and Dragons. Speaking of Dungeons and Dragons, I think that's been exploding lately. I think it's going to continue to explode. You got the movie coming out, and we get people. Honestly, we probably get more questions and phone calls about D&D than any other thing. It's people want to play all the time. I don't think it's a challenging thing to get into, but trying to have the space to have all those people is just, we started a wait list for our D&D room, and we got to 50 plus people, and yeah, we ended up hey, we're just going to get rid of the list because I don't think we're ever going to exhaust this list. And D&D is very hot, so I think that's a good thing. And as far as us here, I just want to continue to see it to grow, people to have a good time, continue to push the games that are fun for people, learn more about board games. That's kind of one of my downfalls is board games. I think those are very challenging because it's very difficult, the amount that comes out to sit down and learn all those games. We get customers come in looking at our games and what about this game? What about this game? What about this game? It's like, and it feels bad when you say, oh, I haven't played that yet. I haven't played that yet. And then where do you find that time to play that? But I think I said it previously, don't be afraid to use your great customers who are here. We have so many people that will be looking at a game, and I know, oh, this guy, John over here, or whoever, or Frank or Bill, whoever, like, plays this game, you know? Hey, what do you think of this game? And they will now hesitate to stand up, come over, and be like, oh, let me tell you about Red Dragon Inn, and let me da-da-da. I got a copy in my car. Let me show you it. And then, you know, that helps out a lot because I can't know everything on the shelf. But having a smaller little game store community like that, it just helps that you know the people who are here, who come here like daily, have no issue with explaining something for you. They're an extension of your store, and they feel good to be part of that. So they have no issue with doing that. So
yeah, no, I think that's a good point to emphasize. Is that if you build your culture right, if you build your community right, and you really invest in it, they become a resource, and they become, like you said, an extension of your business that you can lean on.
Yeah, I wish I could add more to the space to grow in the future too, but that's kind of difficult with the building and location. I've thought about expanding, like maybe another extension of our store somewhere else, but for now I think I'm comfortable with what I'm doing, and I think we talked about that before, like overextending yourself with product and games and stuff. I think it's kind of the same thing for me. I don't want to lose touch with what I got going now. So I think where we're at, I hate to say that we're kind of steady state, but for now we're steady state. We're growing. Just by doing what we're doing, we're growing without having to do much. Treating people right again, advertising, marketing, having fun, and I think we'll be all right just doing those things.
Yeah, you don't have to necessarily grow your square footage in order to grow your business. I just thought of this. I think this is an interesting question. I don't know what your response will be, but what is the most difficult part about being a game store owner?
Oh, man. For me, honestly, I think it's all the financial part. And it's not the financial part of having money. It's the understanding of the financial part. And again, that's just me, though. I did logistics when I was in the Army, so when it comes to the ordering and the organization of the store, you can ask him how OCD I am. Our system is like categorized, coded, colors, everything is like on point. I get a little overwhelmed by the financial part. Am I making money? Am I not making money? Can I hire another guy? If I hire another guy, am I going to fall on my face? So I think that's probably the hardest thing for me. Other than that, I think everything else is run pretty smooth. And I think the 20 years of being in the military and dealing with people has given me that profound, portion of what I do here. The way we treat people, customer interaction and those types of things, and hiring the right people and things like that.
Cool. Yeah, I guess I can definitely see how accounting and cash flow could be an element of the business that not everyone's going to be comfortable with. There's a lot going on, right? That is tough, right? There's a lot coming in and there's a lot going out, and getting the picture of, okay, how healthy is this profit and loss situation going, right? Like that's a challenge. I can totally understand why that would be something that you might not be super comfortable with. No.
Sorry, we talked about hiring people. Don't be afraid to hire people to do things for you. So if you're really, really good at finances out there and you're running your business, good for you. But I'm not. So I pay that accountant. Hey, here you go. Run my books, keep it up to date, and I'm just going to continue to run my business. That's just one less thing I have to focus on. And again, it goes back to that. If you don't know something about something, and have somebody else do it for you. Don't be afraid to pay that extra money to have somebody, take care of that portion of your business, because time is money. At the end of the day, time is something you can't get back. So if you're spending hours of crunching numbers for your business, that could be hours you're doing something else. So.
Right. There's no point in falling on your face if you can help it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's a really good lesson, is outsource your weaknesses. If it's just not your wheelhouse, that's okay, because you're not going to be great at everything. Give it to somebody that's their thing, and they're happy to just crunch the numbers. They love spreadsheets, and they love the books. Give it to them. Make sure that they take care of it. Somebody that you trust, obviously, but give it to them so that you can focus on the things that you're really good at. Right? Obviously, it sounds like you're really good at marketing and branding and figuring out how to reach new customers, and that's something that you thrive in. The more time you spend on that, the more effective you are in building your business. So it makes sense to put the time and your energy in the things that you're good at.
Yeah, I think one other thing that's challenging actually is just finding new players for whether any game that be. And I kind of talked about it before, but there's already a community of gamers that are out there, and gaming's not for everybody, but you can only pull but so many people from so many places. So, and I think a lot of other companies see that challenge as well. How do we get new people into a game? How do I get people into this game? I've done a lot of different things, bring a friend night, learn to play nights. They've been, I'd say, semi-successful, but I just tend to find that it's very difficult as a store owner to create something that draws people in that are not already part of a gaming community. And I'll give you an example, like a new game comes out, you're not just going to have random people off the street walk in and wanting to play this new game. It's typically your already gaming community that needs to play it. And then again, they're stretching themselves thin, maybe. I don't know their finances, but you start getting into more and more games. Now you're spending X money here. Or what they do is they give up one game to play another. So that's been a challenge. Is how do we get more people into this trading card game? How do we get more people into this trading card game? I don't know the answer to that yet. I'm sure people out there have tons and tons of ideas they've tried or has worked, hasn't worked. And it's also going to be different for every community. Every location is going to be different. If you're in the middle of North Dakota, you're probably not going to have too many gamers around, in a community of 600 people or something. But that's been a challenge. And like I said, I think major corporations have that challenge too. How do we get people to play this game, So.
Yeah, I think that is probably one of the biggest challenges facing stores in general. Is the idea of you've got this core audience that already understands the hobby industry. They already play some of these games, and they're just kind of moving around within the space, right? If you're a Magic player, maybe you'll dabble in D&D a little bit, maybe you'll dabble in some of the other card games. But generally speaking, if you're in that audience, you've only got so much money you're going to spend every year on your hobby, and it's not going to grow that much, right? On average, anyways. And if you want to grow your business, you need to reach outside of that audience, right? You need to reach people who have never heard about board games beyond Monopoly or what have you.
Right.
You need to reach people who have never played Magic before, and you need to get them to be curious enough to come into the store and find out more, right? And the idea of the bring a friend, I think makes a lot of sense, right? Using your core audience, using your community to try and increase that reach, get that word of mouth going, get some new people, some fresh blood into the store, and try to introduce them into the game. I think that's something that every game store struggles with. Not just game stores, but like you said, major publishers, big corporations. That's their big goal. The big thing that they need to do is because if you looked at the population of Canada or of the States, pretty much anywhere, the core gamer section of the population is probably just this tiny little fraction, 1% maybe, right? You get the 99% of the mainstream or the mundanes, as my friend John likes to call them. Those are all people who have never played the game, never played, a Euro game, maybe never played a card game outside of Go Fish and that kind of thing. How do you reach those people and get in? Because they would probably, I'm sure there's a huge swath of the population that could be gamers, that could be very interested. It's just maybe they've never been exposed to it, or there's some sort of a stigma around it because that's been the way, been the case for a very long time. No one wants to be the nerd, or at least that used to be the case.
Yeah.
Until recently. And that's, I think, going to be this perennial, obstacle that game stores need to tackle in order to grow, in order to succeed, is to really tap into that mainstream market and have a consistent flow of people being exposed to the hobby, and gradually joining that core audience. And how that gets done, like you said, it's different for every community. It's different for every store because every store's the angle is a little bit different, the appeal is a little bit different. But that's something that I think every store owner needs to almost be thinking about constantly if they want to ultimately succeed in the long term. Talking about success, I think it's a really great segue because one of my final questions is, specifically around success. That's the theme of the podcast, trying to build a successful game store. But success as a term is very nebulous. It's ambiguous. It doesn't necessarily mean the same thing for everybody, right? So one person's success might be someone else's failure. So my question that I usually like to end podcasts on is, what does success look like for you and for modern tabletop gaming?
I think for me, just again, players in the seats. I'm a very unique animal, and not to share too much personal things, but I mean, I'm retired military. So, I have a pension that a lot of people can't rely on. So for me, I can invest and lose more money, and not lose, but I can put more, I can pay myself less money and invest that back into the store. So for me, I don't mind at the end of the day of people being in, letting that money go or putting that money back into the store to get people in the seats. Because he's probably heard me say it a dozen times during pre-releases and big events. When I get this big smile, I'm like, man, look at these guys. They're all in the seats, and they're playing their favorite game. They're not on the streets. They're not, out drinking. They're not, doing drugs or whatever, maybe whatever you think about that way. And that kind of excites me. So I think success for me is just that the store can continue to run itself and people can just have a good time. I know I've kind of beat that dead horse a lot, but that is really true for me. Like, it just want people to have a good time. Like, because at the end of the day, that is what it's about. If you do that, again, you're going to be successful because people are going to show up and they're going to buy things. So imagine going somewhere you don't have fun.
You're not going to go back.
You're not going to go back.
Right.
So
yeah, success is a very powerful thing, and I think it definitely, my idea of success in this case is that big growing community, like I talk about. The fact of cultivating all your people there, having that strong base of people who always want to come back and people who always want to, help you grow, and people who always want to help other people come into the hobby. That's what success is, in my opinion. It's just bringing more people into the fold, making them comfortable, and really trying to expand and grow outward with other people.
Yeah, and other people might, there's nothing wrong. We're not taking away from the money aspect. Yeah, I would like to make money, and I do want to make money. And if somebody's out there, doing it just for the money, that's fine too. Like you said, everybody's success is different. I'm not looking to be a global phenomenon or a multi-million-dollar company. I enjoy this part of it. I enjoy being that small little, dot on the map where people can go in this community here. And that's fine for me.
That's a good answer. I like it a lot, and I think that's why I like asking that question, because it is very personal and it's very unique to where you are in your life and what you want to achieve. But I think it's good to understand that not everybody's definition of success is the same, right? Like, if you get into this business, you can be very happy with you don't have to be, like you said, you don't have to get to $1 million a year. You don't have to be a 7-figure business in order to feel like you've achieved something, you've gotten to where you want to be and you're happy. You can find success in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a great place to wrap up the conversation. I think that's a really good note to end on. So, parting words, I want to ask before we plug the shop and tell people where they can find you and connect with you. Do you have any last words of wisdom for somebody who is listening to the podcast right now and thinking, this sounds really cool. This is very much the kind of business that I want to run. I'm going to open a shop just like Modern Tabletop Gaming in my area, hopefully very far away from you. But what would you say to that store owner or potential store owner?
Probably don't build on your own. I think a lot of people make that mistake. Is I know exactly what I want to do and I know how to do it. So I am on so many Facebook pages of owners and stores. I follow so many other stores across the globe on my Facebook for liking, and I see their events and I take ideas. The wheel is out there. You don't have to reinvent it. Feel free to. I have called other stores in other states and asked them, hey, I saw this event you posted, and I own this store here. I talked to the owner. I had a question about how successful was this for you, and what would you have done different at this event? I have message stores on Facebook. I have, don't be afraid to do that. And, if you're listening to this podcast and like you said, there's something that, we've said or you've thought about or triggered a thought, feel free to reach out to us. Shoot us an email, a message, phone call, whatever. We're here as well to provide back feedback of whatever was successful for us or what didn't work for us. Awesome.
Well, where can people come and get you? Where do they go? What's your website? Give them the info.
Yeah, so our website is www.moderntabletop.rva, like Richmond, Virginia, rva.com. We have a Facebook page, Discord as well. That's a great place for the community to talk. Our Discord's going off constantly with people chatting about their favorite games or the things they hate the most about their favorite game.
All day, every day.
Oh my gosh, every day. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate both of you making the time twice to come back and finish the conversation. I very much appreciate the fact that you were able to give us your time and your generous wisdom for the day.
No, thank you for having us. This was a great experience to be reached out to and be able to do this for the community. So
thanks for having us on. Appreciate it.
Glad to have you on the show, and we'll talk to everybody again in the next episode of the Mavers podcast.